Thank you so much, everyone, for joining. And we're excited to share some highlights from the research that we've done at Altimeter. So I'll be going through some of the information, but I just want to introduce myself too. My name is Charlene. I am a senior fellow. I'm also the founder of Altimeter. I've been an analyst for over 20 years. I'm excited to share the information today, and I'm based in San Francisco. Cecilia, why don't you introduce yourself?
Cecilia, you're on mute.
Sorry. Hi, everyone. I'm Cecilia. Can you hear me? I'm the partner of Corporate Shanghai office, and I have 25 experience through brand strategy, marketing, retailing, and digital related disciplines. And I have been in the Greater China years for over 25 years.
So hi, I'm Jacqueline. I'm a partner with Profit based out of the Singapore office. So prior to this, I spent like about 5 years in Hong Kong office. Been in a business for the last 25 years, which makes me sound really old. So I'm primarily in a lot of the business of helping companies kind of hone the growth strategy, as well as help a lot of businesses, especially in Southeast Asia, these days to transform themselves digitally. So we're excited to share a little bit more about some of the trends that we see here in Southeast Asia, as well as in Asia. Over to you, Charlene.
Okay, I think what we're going to do first is just give a quick introduction to Profit. So,
Sure.
Okay, Jacqueline, if you could do this, because you're the most experienced here about Profit. Thank you.
Thanks, Charlene. Yeah. So, for those who are less familiar with Profit, right? So we have always been in the business of helping company grow. So I think the name Profit gives you a little bit of a clue of how we do that. So customer centricity in terms of how we use insights to grow, it's really important. And I think what's more important over the last 25 years or so is that you can see the business have changed a lot. I think in the recent years of pandemic, that has transformed even more. So we help when the business of helping company transform, be it in the brand, marketing, sales, digital, or organizational and culture. And I think what you hear today will be centered a lot about some of the offers we do a lot of Profit, right? So when we think about transformative growth, we are living in a very unusual times, and Charlene is going to talk a little bit more about the research that, Altimeter, our analyst team at Profit has actually looked into this area. A lot of things we tend to do is to look at how organization transform itself, be it in marketing, in organization, sales, or brand. And it is not just about transforming, right? All of the transformative growth, especially in Asia, is about talking about how do we grow the business? How do we grow with clients? How do we grow with markets? How do we grow it in terms of capabilities? And obviously, at the end of the day, is in a very challenging time of pandemic, how do we grow in terms of sales? And you could check out Profit website for a little bit more information about what we do. So a lot of things we do tend to have a thread of digital across everything we do, in terms of helping company, whether it's transforming the sales and experience, whether it is boosting your customer marketing, as well as the capabilities of insights with customers. We do a lot of brand strategy work to enable you to transform or to grow. We also look at how you can actually do that through the people and with the employee culture. So today, I think we're going to hear some really interesting trends and interesting research that, Charlene and the Altimeter team has gone into for the past year to look at how digital has truly transformed the way of life and the way of business for us in 2021. Charlene?
Okay, great. Thank you, Jacqueline. So we're going to be talking about 4 trends today. I'll be introducing them and then handing it over to Jacqueline and Cecilia for us to have a discussion about how these trends are manifesting here in Asia. And so the first trend is looking at digital transformation. And one of the things that we've seen in this past year is that digital transformation has in the past been a project team or a special effort. But what 2020 showed us is that this isn't just a one-time thing or a temporary thing. Digital transformation is going to be a continuous process. It's not something that is just done once and then you're over. We see that, especially with the pandemic, it really brought this to home. So what we're seeing and anticipating is that transformation will become this continuous process. And as a result, it'll move into a permanent department where people will get new skills, have career paths, have promotion abilities. And this becomes something that is integral and becomes a actual function and department in an organization, rather than a temporary team with people pulled in from different departments to do a temporary role inside of an organization. So some of the implications for this in particular, what to do. If you do have a temporary transformation management office, these TMOs, think about how you're going to shift that from being temporary to being permanent. What are the shifts? What are the personnel? What are the financing? What are the budgetary issues you have to think about? But also think about what the governance is going to have to change inside the organization. That if this becomes something that's vital to the organization and isn't something that people can just ignore or just assume that's going to be short term, it has implications across how departments will work together in the future. We also see that because that transformation office is going to become a permanent capability, what we're seeing ways to fund it is that organizations are taking money away from external management consulting and bringing that in-house. They may even hire consulting teams to bring that capability in-house, knowing that, again, this is going to be an ongoing issue for them. And then finally, it's really about taking the people who are in that transformation role. They may have been borrowed from other departments, but now because they're becoming full-time transformation strategists, to give them the professional development, the leadership development, the skills, the backgrounds and scenario planning, for example, to be able to take on those responsibilities. So Jacqueline, Cecilia, your thoughts about how you're seeing this play out in the Asia region?
So I'll go first. I think this is critical, right? I mean, there's a few projects I'm currently running with some clients in Southeast Asia, where the TMO office actually it's an integral part of the process, right? But interestingly, I think this is also extremely new to a lot of organizations, right? If you look at a lot of companies today, especially in Southeast Asia, anything to do with digital tend to be pushed towards the tech team. Tech take care of it. It's about a platform. It's about the tech play. They don't really understand, this is actually a much more collaborative effort. And it's got to be almost like, it's no longer about silo, it's about the organization wide working together. And I think this is still ongoing and transforming. I think in many ways, what I've seen also in Southeast Asia is that the pandemic kind of kickstart this almost immediately, because suddenly sales, marketing, and tech realized that, hey, we're not synchronized, we're not doing it together. How can we do this better together? And obviously, another big bucket of this, and this is where Charlene is really good in terms of coaching for leadership team, is that I'm also seeing a trend where the leadership of organization are a little bit lost sometimes as with regards to the transformation. Cecilia, I don't know what you feel in China.
Right. In China, so I checked with my fellow friends here. So this is one term that has not been heard of a lot in this market. However, if the company is a multinational company, or they have been worked with like a transformation agency, and the consulting firm or agency will suggest to client that to have this TMO office. So I think this is the emerging trend in China as well. And we can see actually there are different roles in different departments now. Now it's emerging and become a more continuous design roles. So, for example, there are strategies among a company strategy department, or in technology team, like what Jacqueline said, or in the digital related or digital marketing department. So this is I would say it's an emerging trend as well. And there are other names which we call them, such as like a digital excellence team. So it is the similar form as the digital transformation office as well.
Right. It's interesting because you both make really good points that this is no longer just a technology issue. So it may have been in the IT department, it may have been in a department just like in marketing or sales. And it's no longer these silos either. And having that overview, the recognition, first of all, that technology needs to go across these different departments and even business units, because customers are moving from one place to another and they need to have that seamless experience, and you can't do that. We oftentimes talk about breaking down silos, and I think about not so much breaking down silos as putting windows between the silos so that you can pass the customer seamlessly between all of these different groups. And that is something that doesn't just stop one day, because it's not just the technology, it's getting the groups from an operations and policies and even just the incentives they have to be aligned with each other around that customer. So it's a very different type of function, more than just technology. And that's I think where the transformation management office is really coming from.
Yeah, I think another point I would like to make is sorry about some drilling because the renovation just next to me. The other point I want to make is with regards to even not just about the customer facing platform towards external. A lot of companies I'm also seeing is having this because of the offline and online kind of a hybrid version of the way they're working these days, is that there isn't even a platform for working together virtually, because it isn't about just having lots of Zoom meetings and having email exchange. There needs to be a way to think about digital platforms as companies come together.
Uh, in China, I think transformation is a more, a bit radical world in here. So perhaps it will using other words, for example, like a reiteration or project, etc. So it's still at the core, it's still helping the company to grow through the digital discipline. However, it might be presented in the organization with other forms.
Yeah. Well, one trend I saw happening in the pandemic is that obviously people started using video conferencing to replace in-person meetings. But many companies just, that was the only thing they did. Again, they were still very much functioning with email. They were functioning exactly the same way. But some people took this as an opportunity, this disruption as an opportunity to fundamentally change the way they worked. Because when they were no longer constrained by the physical proximity for each other, they started looking at using digital, again, those digital collaboration platforms, just Teams or SharePoint, Trello. Even some people were just using WhatsApp to the amusement of the IT department. But the thing is that this idea of working digital, of not just meeting digital, but transforming the way people work and collaborate. And with the idea that you can share information much easier and faster with each other is what we're seeing now. We're seeing this differentiation and competitiveness of some organizations being able to just drive that transformative growth in a different way. All right, shall we go on to the next topic? I want to make sure we get time to do that. And also, if you have questions, to please put them into the Q&A. We'll do our best to answer as many of those at the end of the time here. So the second trend that we're watching is the use of intelligent technologies. This is machine learning, artificial intelligence. And what we're seeing now is that the adoption of these tools, these technologies, is really becoming a key differentiator in terms of your competitiveness. And we think this is going to accelerate in 2021. And the key reasons for this is that it's one thing to put AI into an organization. It's another thing to scale it. And in order to scale and to get all of that productivity and the impact of AI, you need to have a lot of operational processes and guidelines and principles. And just all of that governance needs to be there, especially around what data is going to be gathered, what's the veracity, and how much truth do we believe in that data. And also just how are we going to put this human element and not over rely on the automation to get you the answers. AI is built on the hypotheses driven by humans. And so you can't just plug it, push a button, and then just assume that the things that are coming out of it are going to be good. It requires, again, this constant iteration. And organizations that have a lot of these processes in place already have this built-in operational capability and excellence. And it's going to become even more so relevant in terms of artificial intelligence. Again, what we're seeing again is a separation of organizations, and we will see this huge competitive advantage that people who already had this because of great operations being able to leverage all of that investment with their AI. So some things to do about this. First of all, I so believe, and our team really loves this whole world of scenario planning, because it has this robustness of looking at all the things that could go wrong or go right in your strategy. And it is perfectly built for these intelligent technologies, especially with quantum computing coming on, where you can run scenarios and pair that with the machine learning to really just supercharge all the various options that you have. But this requires, to do scenario planning requires not only having the data, but also making sure that the organization has the inputs, that alignment across the organization to put the inputs into the scenarios. The scenarios are created by people, and then the machines actually run the scenarios and give you all the permutations. The other thing I would say is AI ethics and the ability to make sure that you have the right processes in place to understand where the data is coming from and that the data sets are good and verified and representative of the people you want to and the things you want to analyze, and also about who actually gets to use this. So having checklists, not assuming that everyone has gone through the training, is following the same process, but detailed checklists is a key thing to develop here. And then finally, again, having strong customer experience principles and guidelines and having a customer experience strategy is crucial to AI. The reason why this is so important is that when you're developing AI and creating experiences based on it, it needs a foundation. It needs constraints, actually, so that it knows what it can do and what it can't do. And my colleagues on Profit will attest to this. When we look at and create customer experience strategies, oftentimes we may think about a single journey or a single persona or a single experience without understanding and putting in place the customer experience guidelines and those principles that you keep coming back to hold yourself to be true to what's the right thing to do for your customers. Those guidelines, take those, because that's such good process and thinking and the values incorporated into that strategy, and make sure you apply those and tap into those when you're developing your artificial intelligence experiences too. So I would love to hear what's happening in the Asia Pacific region. Cecilia, Jacqueline, what are your thoughts around this?
Yeah, let me go first. I think for the AI, it's more about the art and science. So I agree with the change what Sharon just shared right now. But in the real world, there are people who use the data, the AI, and there are people who develop the algorithm, etc. So you see, because of nowadays in the more senior position, people they didn't like a trend in the school. From the beginning, they have been equipped with this knowledge of collecting data and how to use the data. So essentially, sometimes they become a black hole in what they operate it, and sometimes the data will still like a very scattered. So you have the policy on the one hand in the company, however, you didn't know who managing the data, how they use and handle the data. if they will they kind of follow a company rule, or it's just in the black hole. So we see there are a lot of crises happening during the past year. For example, like all of the transactional data were crashed in one service provider. So it made a lot of different small and middle e-commerce company. They just lost their every transactional data. So that's one thing. And the other thing is that there are a lot of new touch points which where can collect data points coming in. So whenever there are something new and every marketer want to try it, however, there is no rule and don't know how to kind of process this data well. So that is another pain point here in China I can observe. How about you, Jacqueline?
Yeah, so I think in Southeast Asia, I think the use of AI, it's both a kind of a good additive kind of a tool, as well as it's also a big challenge, right? So as we know, like if you think about the huge market in Southeast Asia, I mean, there's 640 million people here. But if you think about the number of people who are very active in digital, it's tend to be a little bit more of the younger and more savvy people. I think the huge challenge of AI would be almost similar to how we start to use phone banking, right? So when you start to do phone banking, the irritation of being, switch from 1 to 2 and 3 and dial press 4, you're beginning to see some of that happening in some of the AI kind of online support, right? Whereby it is not as intuitive in terms of helping you. And I think the other challenge that I see, of course, in terms of like chatbot and using AI for support in that one little variable, is that it is not as useful in certain languages. And of course, English, although it is a primary business language in a lot of parts in Southeast Asia, it is not necessarily one that is used very well across the larger population, especially I would say the mass market, middle to lower market, where they're adapting to use more digital today. They're unsure how to actually use it, where English is not a dominant language, and that becomes an issue. So that's one big parameter that I see. I think that's still going to evolve quite a fair bit. And the other thing I do see is I don't think the ethical standards of AI in Southeast Asia is still well established, because this is a very new kind of a playground for the region, and everybody is still trying to understand how to use this. And I think this is where it can become a huge advantage over time. If not, it's going to be a little bit more challenging.
That's such a good point, Jacqueline. Thank you for bringing up the ethical processes and the guidelines. And I just want to stress how important that is. It's so tempting. It's just like, let's just get into it. Let's just see what's working, and just try lots of experiments. But realize that the early experiment, because AI is iterative, and as you do those early experiments, if you're not taking the precautions to check and make sure that the data sources are the type that you want, you can build biases into your AI, because it's learning and it's going to take those learnings and use them again in the future. So it feels like you have to slow down in some ways and take a step back with this really exciting technology. But I think it's so important to lay down those foundations today. And you raise a really good point about the use of these chatbots and the conversational technologies. This is why, again, those customer experience guidelines are so important. In some ways, you may be hurting yourself in your customer relationship if you jump too soon into this without taking into account what are those underlying principles, and are you violating them by putting in this great new technology, but is causing more frustration than you ever intended. All right. Other thoughts before we move on? Okay. All right, let's go on to the third area, which is around marketing. And this is, again, we love data, as you can see. And what we're seeing right now in 2021 is a shift from third-party data over to first and second-party data. And the major reason why this is happening is because Google has announced that they're going to end the cookie tracking and capabilities inside its browser. So people are looking around going, what are you going to do to make up for this? Because in the end, we really still want to understand what people are doing across different sites. What are our customers seeing and doing? And we're just not going to be able to get them from third-party sources anymore. So instead, what we're seeing is people are starting to really focus much more on the owned data, the own data, first-party data that they can collect. In the past, you didn't have to do that. You could just rely on these third-party cookies to be able to do this. Even with your own data, it was more reliable and accessible. But now we're going to go back and actually take that huge amount of information that we have just from people engaging with us across different channels, across social, and then bring it back to what their experience is, that this is the same person happening and visiting us here on our website. The really interesting opportunity is we think that there's going to be more second party data. And this is coming from, for example, publishers or partners who may be going and co-marketing with you, or maybe even companies that are not competitive to you, but in adjacent markets where you may be serving similar customers, but with complementary products. And so you agree to share, again, assuming that the privacy issues are being addressed. You're going to share information back and forth. That, oh, I recognize your customer, we can see my customer, we can share data back and forth. So some of the ways to get ready for this is you've got to look at the data integrity. We oftentimes collect a lot of data, but we may not necessarily believe it, or we may not have good information that this is the same customer here in this channel, and that customer is that channel. This is a part of the whole legacy systems that we have. Do we actually believe that the data is being exchanged and moved back and forth? And that is going to be extremely important as you become much, much more reliant on that first party data. So there was any time to be starting in looking at making sense of the data throughout the entire organization of wherever your customer is touching you, this is the year to do it, because you're going to have that in place in 2022. Look at those partnerships. Who are the potential people you could be working with? And then finally, invest in these digital platforms, and especially think about how you're going to make sure that data is being moved from one team to the other. This is, again, those windows that I talked about, putting them in place between these silos. I kind of think about these windows between departments and functions and even business units as you making sure that the teams are talking to each other. The actual data pipes may have to be built over time, but don't wait for the pipes to be put there. At the minimum, you can just be yelling at each other through the windows and tossing the data back and forth. But this is the time now to establish and figure out where are the priorities, where are the places you need to have those windows put in place to make sure that you can have this information sharing seamlessly across the organization. All right, I'm curious how the markets in China and Southeast Asia are looking at this problem. Again, I have a very US-centric point of view. Are marketers and organizations also dealing with this issue? How are they thinking about it?
Cecilia?
Jack, yeah, I can go first. So in China, the brand owner wants to have their first party data like back the US. However, the driver is actually quite different, because in China, the cookie exception, the policy has not been implied to every website or something like that. But we have the privacy TSC, of course. However, I think the driver to have more first-party data is because to advertise on the platforms like Ali or JD or like Tencent is getting more and more expensive. So the brand owner wants to have their own data in order to reach their own customer and to get a better on the return on the investment. So we can see there are a lot of different efforts. For example, like the traditionally FMCG or packaging food, personal care brands, they don't have their own data because they are so the unit price is very low, so they don't put much effort on collecting their own data for the purchasers. They rely on the platform or the end channel to provide them. However, now they are printing the barcode on the the QR codes on their packaging, and also create that like mini apps in the WeChat system to kind of encourage their purchasers to scan the codes, and in order to collect their own points. And for the brand owners, they can have the end customer data, and also starting to build a relationship with them, and not only collect the data, but also building the consumer into a more loyalty consumers. So this is what I see right now. So because it's because of the marketing budget is getting higher and higher. So the brand owner needs to find the other way. So to own their data is one of the strategy that most brands is focusing on right now.
Yeah. And then what I see in Southeast Asia, I think there are two major challenges as I see them, right? So number one, I said the good thing is the pandemic has elevated and accelerated people moving and integrating the platform. But I think in truth is in Southeast Asia, where about 60% of the business is supported by small and medium companies, a lot of them don't have such a digital platform, and they're beginning to do that. And when it comes to whether if it's going to be a B2C and e-commerce site, they are now today leveraging more on the third-party data, be it like a site like Shopee or Lazada, which is an e-commerce site that's largely adopted today. And then people are trying to see how they can actually work with these people. Now, I think the other challenge that I see here is that, trying to have a synchronized and one holistic view of what the data means to the company is a huge challenge, because not everybody understand that, hey, number one, even within a company, who owns that data? How do we use that data? And you see that again, a lot of times this tend to sit within the tech or IT department. And then when it comes to being shared across the internal team, it's a little bit less, right? So even if you have the data, how do you use the data in a meaningful sense, especially when it comes to marketing and sales? And as Charlene mentioned rightfully earlier on, as such people use this data to form that meaningful relationship across customer experience journey, there's still a huge challenge of people trying to understand what that means, because who is using the data from your client side, how do you actually see that, as I say, a holistic view of how do you actually manage that relationship from end to end? And there tend to be a not clear-cut way of looking at the data across the entire experience journey, if you may. And that's a huge challenge, I think, in Southeast Asia. I think this is going to be a one major investment that company in Southeast Asia are still pulling back, because it is expensive, right? Number one, to synchronize your, I would say, your arcade legacy data platform and move into something new. And the integration from everything from commerce to mobile is a huge challenge. And do you think about, hey, do we just want to do an app thinking that everybody come on board? It doesn't work that way, especially for a lot of individual businesses. So I think for data, it remains one of the huge, I think, pain point, I think, in a lot of companies as part of the digital transformation.
Good. Those are fascinating. Thank you for those insights. It's so different, and the challenges in the two markets from the US. All right, the last one. Okay, so this last one is a fun one. What we have found is, especially when it comes to the selling and the sales departments, COVID-19 created what we call the sink or swim moment, and especially for sales and for field sales, especially B2B. And what we found was that again, sales is so reliant on that personal relationship. And when they couldn't no longer meet face to face with people, it really separated the sales departments that had invested in digital platforms and digital capabilities. We did a whole state of digital selling and found this huge difference in terms of the effectiveness of more digitally savvy, more digitally mature organizations in sales. It was like a huge difference, and twice as much in terms of the capabilities, the results that they were getting, and it's just across the board. You could see this differentiation. So what we're finding recommending is that sales leaders really lean into the other parts of the organization that have already gone through this digital transformation and tap into the expertise in IT and marketing and form these centers of excellence or communities of practice. We've seen some departments actually take the entire team from marketing and to say, we're assigning you over here now to sales, work from marketing ops and integrate that with sales ops and digitize not just the back end operations, but also really invest in the digital capabilities. Again, they have used the opportunity of COVID to really use this as a time to ramp up the training and the ability for sales to become much more digital. The other thing would be really helpful is for the sales leaders to actually create some benchmarks. And this is really around what are the very specific skills? What are the data points? What are the integrations that we want to have with marketing as marketing and sales start becoming closer and closer together, especially with account-based marketing. The role of sales and marketing is becoming so much more integrated. And again, digital collaboration platforms are allowing them to be moving much faster in response to any customer needs. So I want to see, again, if you're seeing something similar in the Chinese and the Southeast Asian markets. Any thoughts?
Jacqueline, would you like to start first?
Yeah, I think, this is, I was just telling Charlene as we started this webinar that this last point is really a critical one, right? Because I think it is really a sink or swim moment for the field sales, because I think the challenge now is as we move towards a very new normal in terms of this hybrid, almost like mostly digital, but somewhat in person, what does that mean for sales, right? Because in many ways, I think the lack of so-called almost a human touch will become a key pain point as digital become more dominant. Because I think as we start to see digital becoming very dominant in the way it performs a sales task, how do you add the human touch that adds the emotional appeal, right? Because it's frustrating. For example, I found that recently I signed up something with regards to in a bank for a particular thing that I want to try out in terms of investment. I log onto it, but I haven't really decided if I want to take on that task. And guess what? I got WhatsApp, email, and even through the app itself, tons of almost like, every other minute I get a automated response in terms of outreach. And so that outreach initially was nice, but when it comes many, many times, I realized that, wow, it turns me off, right? Even though I think the product is great. So I think this is where a new way of doing sales in the field in a very different manner because of pandemic is really changing, how people understand what this means. It doesn't mean you just do everything extremely digital and then cut off that human touch. I mean, I would appreciate, for example, for them to say, I'd love to give her a call to discuss more. Would that be good? A simple question like this could actually make sense, even having this kind of a hybrid moment. I think that the digital moment in the COVID for sales becomes extremely challenging. While I don't want the insurance person to call me nonstop, that kind of like tactic, that human touch became almost interesting. Don't know what you see in Cecilia. This is a little bit different from I mean, just from personal experience.
Right. In China, during the lockdown, because I think most of the business owner and the marketers, they were so panicked regarding the drop of the sales. So during that I would say that the sales I think the low sales get the timing, and there are two main interesting forms are forming in this market. One is the promoting products through the live streaming e-commerce platform. So not only promote the product by content, but also you can actually see the product, see the introduction, and find it in this platform. So there are a lot of different platforms of promoting this. For example, like the Taobao in the Alibaba, and also in WeChat Moments, etc. So there are so many different platforms who enable the brand owner to do that. And there are so many brand owners who embrace this new sales channel. And the second interest one is the linking the individual sales through the WeChat enterprise instant message. So I would say that is kind of like WeChat version of Salesforce. So it helps the field sales who can connect with their customer and carrying their customer and fulfill their service through their business platform. And also for the headquarters, they can gather the information through the sales person through them. And in fact, the WeChat enterprise version, there are a lot of add-ons which can add into, no matter it's about marketing, content pushing, or the training to the field sales, or even the one-on-one a promotion message to the customer. So it becomes a very popular practice here in China. So one of my client, one of the CNO, she said to me that in fact now she cares about how to make a marketing department become a profitable department, but not a expense department anymore. So I think that is quite interesting in terms of this trend for sales.
No, I think Cecilia brought in some interesting point regarding like new ways, especially in China, of at least B2C, right? I'm kind of like smart live streaming sales and all that, and those are really quite smart. And I think it is almost in a sense whereby nothing stops you from doing that one-to-one video call with some of your clients. And obviously this differ from industry to industry, right? Some of the respondents in the chat is asking with regards to, does this impact different industries? And I think there is. At the end of the day is you have to look at where your customers are, where they hang out, and how do you then interact with them. I don't think you can force them to come to a platform in terms of trying to do that sales response. It's a matter of trying to make sure that you hang out with them where they are hanging out, so that you are with them at the premise, and then not change the behavior of the way they are doing sales or approaching sales in a different way.
Okay. All right, this is the fun part. We're going to go to Q&A. All right. And I think I'm just going to read through some of these questions so we can get as many of them answered in the next few minutes here. So Mikesh is wondering if creating a transformation department creates another siloed organization. Is that better? Would it still be better if we continue to just pool cross-functionally across the different departments and have them become part of the transformation office? I'll answer this very quickly. Yes, it does have the danger of becoming another silo, but I think the nature of the work is to build the connections between the silos. And it's sort of the same way that IT has its cross-functional roles, finance has its cross-functional role in supporting these more departmental areas. Again, it is one of the reasons why many organizations have resisted formalizing the TMO, because of various political infighting, frankly, between all the other customer-facing departments, not having this other group that they have to do more cross-functional reporting to. But it becomes a forcing function when it does have that power, has the budget, has the people sitting at the C-suite table. And I think that's where the real power for it comes from.
Yeah, I mean, totally with what Charlene said, right? I think a TMO office model would be different from company to company. So number one, it needs to be formed in a manner that fits with the organization. So in Asia, a lot of organizations tend to be very top down, right, rather than flat, right? And I think this the digital transformation and a digital kind of acceleration is going to transform a flatter organization. Now this means what that model of transformation office looks like is critical, right? Because it is not about creating a silo where this transformation office take care of all the transformational needs. No, it doesn't work that way. You're almost going to see a way whereby there is going to be a core team leading the transformation, but within this core team, they are also responsible for different charters and different tasks, where they in turn have their mini transformation teams, if you may, within their department that comes together for this transformation. So there's almost a cross-organizational view of how transformation is going on to make sure that you move together because you can't just run at different speed, right? That's what we tend to see for companies who transform in a very bad way. It is talking about that transformation office leading the way, and it should be represented across organization. So I think the formation of the TMO office is critical, and it's not one size fits all.
We have another question here about transformation is how do you post shareholders or management who may be reluctant across the line in terms of the need to transform?
Do you have any experience on that with speaking to some of the CMO and CEOs, Charlene? Because you do a
Yeah, I
lot.
have a lot of experience with this.
You
This
do
is
a lot of
the
you do a
bulk
lot
of
of
what I
leadership.
do.
Right, yeah, because I think your view on leadership coaching, right? I mean, for the respondents on the line here, I'm going to do a bit of selling, but I'm telling you that we haven't used Charlene enough in Asia, but she's one of the best leadership coaching in terms of, I think, everything to do with digital. And maybe you want to share some of the experience with regards to that, because I think this is the critical problem. A lot of leaders, I believe, don't like to say that they are facing the issue, but that's critical here.
Yes, again, the leaders oftentimes think it's a digital and technology problem. So they go, it's not my problem. I'm thinking about higher order strategies. I'm going to let IT take care of this. But the most advanced, the key issue here is that it's always about the customer. The digital transformation is in service of the customer. And who is the person who is most beholden to keep that customer's needs in mind? It is the top executives and especially the CEO. And so this is the reason why it's so important. And our research is showing that increasingly CEOs are taking on a much more strategic role. They're the ones who are owning digital transformation now, shifting that away from the IT and the CTOs and the CIOs. So the only way I've been able to get executives to focus on this is to talk about what is your understanding of customers? How do you know what they're doing? Not just the customers of today, but your customers of the future. And I meet very, very few CEOs who can tell me who their future customer is. And very importantly, if you don't know who your future customer is, then how do you craft a strategy for the future if you don't know what you're trying to aim for? And so that logic really encourages them to really sit down and say, how do I actually prepare for that future? And digital transformation is a key part of that.
Yeah, and I think I see this again as an issue that for different industry and sector, the challenge is slightly different. For me, I think the banks have done it among the best, right, in terms of trying to tackle this transformation that's ongoing. I see a lot of struggles. For me, in from telco, surprisingly, through to even down to insurance company, right, and a lot of the healthcare company are struggling for this as well. So it's really down to, at the end of the day, for having a brave leadership and I think a bold leadership to understand that it needs some support and help with regards to this huge challenge with regards to really transforming the organization, not in 3 years, but in a very expedited short period of time. And how do you do it in terms of quick wins and very quickly getting an organization together? And I think importantly, at Profit, something that we do, we talk about, transforming mind, body, and soul. All of those got to come together, because if you miss any of it and just putting a structure in place, putting a TMO office in place without leadership support in Asia, luckily, I think that we get a lot of that. All of those pieces, if it doesn't work together, you're going to fail.
Right. I mean, think about this, right? Think about how much we changed just a year ago. We did in 5 or 7 days what we thought would have taken 5 or 7 years, and we did it like that.
That's
That
right.
should give us confidence that we can go through these digital transformations, that our organizations are much more resilient and can take on this change much faster than we ever thought. And yet we've kind of got backed away from it now. We've like, okay, that was like a crisis. We could rise up to that. But we're going to go back to the old way of the speed of which we're doing. I don't think so. And what we're seeing across the board is that digital transformation is accelerating across the board. And that leadership is realizing, I need to know what's going on here and be a key part of that.
Yeah. There's one good example that I thought worked really well. I saw in a bank. Yeah, I'll just say the bank, the DBS Bank, right? When they started embarking on this digital transformation journey years ago, they actually when they had a huge challenge whereby 50% of the workforce is like had been with the bank for a long time, and the younger workforce want to work in Facebook and Google and find it cooler. And they have this huge issue whereby it's no longer cool to work in a legacy business. And what they did, I thought was fabulously, was that the HR department worked together, the market and tech. They actually initiated a hackathon to actually come together to teach everybody why we can hack and innovate something digital together with the legacy people who know the business really well and with the young brains in the business. And they didn't do the hackathon to solve a problem. They used the hackathon to actually come together to solve a cultural thing. So they put teams together of startups together with some legacy bank people who have never used digital, and with very young people who understand digital but don't really understand the whole experience of how banking truly works. And when formed together small teams to solve problem very quickly, they realize that magic happens. So I think, as Charlene mentioned, I think if we think about some of the interesting way of trying to be more innovative in this age, and then using tools that everybody can be and find it exciting, it's going to be really a good times for everybody in years to come.
I have this great question from Cheryl, which is, what have been the most creative ways you have seen clients using digital marketing or digital technologies during COVID?
Cecilia, I think China has a lot of good examples.
I just mentioned two, and I think there is a very bespoke case in China right now. One brand called one skincare brand that they have so many outlet store in Wuhan, so which was locked down for a very long time. However, after they proceed with the sales, that they kind of like empower their front end sales with a lot of digital sales tool, and also using a lot of low-tech kind of technology, for example, like just create the community in the WeChat system, and for each store to talk to their client, and also marketing their contents and convert them to sales. And eventually, actually, the Wuhan city, the sales of in this region is the top for this brand in the last year. So I would say it's about the resilience and about the creative use not of the tools, and it's about not waiting the headquarters to instruct for anything, but just innovate in the front end. So yeah, that's the most interesting and most talking about case in China in the past year.
And how about in Southeast Asia, Jacqueline? Are you seeing anything interesting there?
I think the most creative ways, I would say, it's because if you look at Southeast Asia, just there is a lot of hawker business, right? A lot of hawker business whereby the stores do not operate with anything digital. So I think the most creative things that the government in each of those Southeast Asia countries has done is that they step up to help them become more digital. Whether is it payment, because contactless is key, so that you can stop the cash payment. So they actually upgraded and help everybody. For the small businesses to start to use QR code, just like in China, it's already a everyday thing, but not in Southeast Asia. So they started doing that wallet, kind of a cashless wallet payment system. But at the same time, even ordering, right? There is no such thing as a delivery store, Deliveroo, or kind of a food panda trying to support a delivery for small businesses. So I think some of the most creative has been companies stepping in, small creative companies, and with the help of government, creating interesting platforms to link this. So I think that's what I saw that was really creative in helping change the way sales could transform and help the small businesses in Southeast Asia. I thought that was quite cool.
Yeah. Try to squeeze in just a few more quick questions here. Mukesh is asking, what are some examples of partnerships that are based on data synergies? I'll just give a quick example. A really good one is to work with publishers. So if you're an advertiser and the publisher, making sure that that second party data is easily transferred back and forth. It's no longer just getting the eyeballs, but getting that data back and forth also in a deep integrated way. So we've been more casual. It's now talking about partnerships, formal agreements, but also formal infrastructures being built in place. And then there was a question here about what about middle of the road or digital selling that could be both digital and traditional sales. Is that a possibility? Are you seeing that being differentiated across industry or by social strata? I don't know if any of you, if either one of you have any thoughts about how sales is somewhere going between digital and traditional, or somewhere following a middle of the road there.
Yeah, I can give one example is about a painting service provider in China, and they work very hard by enabling the front end sales to be equipped with the digital tools. So they have a traditional ways of, selling their services to their customer. However, they kind of like look at the whole journey from getting the leads and to visit the customer for the first time, and then do the quotation, etc. And then they kind of like digitalize everything and to make the whole process on the phone, on the apps. And so to enable the front end sales could leverage the digital tool, but at the same time still have some humanized touch if the features in the app is just don't work. And later on, because of the non-contact policy during the pandemic time, so the conversation with the client transferred to the instant message tools, for example, like WeChat, etc. So I think that one is a very good case, and actually they kind of extend this whole journey from the lead acquisition as well right now. So from the prospecting and to the whole fulfillment process, and later on enter this close this end at the customer care related services.
I'm not sure what middle ground would be, right, or middle road would be in terms of this, but I feel that again, looking at where your customers are in terms of their digital adoption habit is important. So in my belief, I think especially in Southeast Asia, instead of trying to build your own platform, you should leverage on platform that's already built, right? And in many ways, I think chat is still one of the biggest platform that you can do in terms of the engagement. So you can start very simple. I mean, having instead of trying to build a kind of your own channel, leverage on channel that's already available out there. Things like WhatsApp, you can actually use it to your great advantage, or even down to Facebook chat, right? But I think in many ways, trying to be where the customers are, at least in Southeast Asia, is going to be the key towards moving towards a new normal. And I think it's still evolving very quickly, but I think trying to build everything on your own rather than joining a community that's already been built would be something to think about.
Yeah. Great. Well, I think we are out of time. I just want to say thank you for joining. Jacqueline, Cecilia, any last words?
I think there'll be a lot of questions that we could have answered everything on this call, and thanks to some of the familiar names and faces I saw on the chat today who have joined us. So thanks for that. But feel free to just reach out to us directly. Our contacts are here. I think I'll urge all the leadership to reach out to Charlene directly, because she does amazing leadership coaching. And then obviously, anything to do with China market, Cecilia is a great expert. And then anything to do with Southeast Asia, I'll be there to support you, or anything else as a team, Profit, we can do anything at this point in time.
Yeah, same here. So thanks for everyone's time here, and contact me if you need more information from my side.
Yeah. So follow us on LinkedIn, and especially Charlene. She's one of the, I think, top digital influencers in the world. So I think if you have not known Charlene, please join her and follow her.
Well, thank you so much, Jacqueline and Cecilia. It's wonderful to get your perspectives. And thank you, everybody, for joining us today. Please stay in touch, as we said, and have a great day. Take care. Bye-bye.
Thank you, everyone.